So some people would say that Bitcoin getting on the national balance sheet is like a Trojan horse for adoption and freedom. But would you take the stance of like Bitcoin being on the balance sheet is the Trojan horse for the government having more involvement in the space in a very negative way?
It's a tough question. Certainly both are possibilities.
Mhm.
I think if you believe the former, then the latter doesn't really matter. If we have a Trojan horse that will ultimately force more government accountability, which to me is where I see the train going, I think ultimately we will have oil priced in Bitcoin. So the petrodollar agreement expired last year. So petro-USD is done. I think petroBTC is somewhere on the horizon, whether it's 6 months or 6 years or 10 years. I don't know, but to me, that's sort of the inevitability here where global commodity settlement happens in Bitcoin. And that solves a lot of the fiat nonsense that we discussed earlier that I has a front row seat to. Any type of hard money would solve this problem to some extent. There's always going to be nonsense, of course. But if we went back to a gold standard, you couldn't get away with a lot of the things that they get away with now. And I think a Bitcoin standard is in our future. I don't know that it happens anytime soon. I don't know if it will happen in our lifetimes, but the Bitcoin adoption by the governments is certainly a huge step towards that.
How do you think that plays into the reduction of government waste? Because I know that you had a chance to be pretty much boots on the ground for some of the ghost towns that were being developed in China, and I would guess are still being developed. Why do you think Bitcoin fixes that in particular?
Yeah, so I toured the ghost cities in 2016. We took a helicopter from Beijing out to the ghost towns, and I have a tweet where I posted some of the pictures, and I will never forget writing that thread. The last thing I wrote was, we all went home and pretended it was true. We pretended that those towns were 30% occupied, and that next year they would be 60% occupied. I mean, it was absurd. There was no one there. But there was a huge bonus in it for everybody involved, right? Like, I was the project manager. I got a massive bonus for just going along with it. And so this is how fiat corruption works, is you're basically bribed to go along with fake towns on sovereign levels. And so Bitcoin fixes this because you can't lie at that scale when you have real money involved. So the bonus that I received, it was just dollars on a ledger in my bank account. Like, that money never really existed, right? Like, I was excited about it because I was living in fiat world. But once you have real money, you have Bitcoin, you have something that is verifiable, that cannot be printed infinitely. So China is printing money as the US is printing money. Everybody's printing money. And when you have an endless supply of something, you can do whatever you want with it. But Bitcoin, you can't print Bitcoin, right? You guys are in the mining space. You understand the proof of work that's required to facilitate Bitcoin, to create or, to have Bitcoin. There's proof of work involved in that. There's a hard money. And so you can't just bribe people to pretend things.
Mm-hmm. There's a real physical cost to generating and securing it, and it's just out of frame here, but I do have software on my bookshelf. And you let me segue into probably exactly what I wanted to talk about today, which is you had a tweet that's done pretty well. You said very briefly, I think the DoD is going to start mining Bitcoin. Why do you think that?
So the reason I tweeted that was because I saw a pattern, and some people will say that this is what I'm skilled at, is recognizing patterns. And so you had all of these accounts that are not hype people hyping really subtly. So I don't, I don't even necessarily think that I deserve the credit for this observation, but I was just aggregating information. So you had a tweet from Sailor, who doesn't make announcements. We have this concept of pre-announcements of announcements and stuff. It's not a thing that Sailor does, right? And you have Matthew Pines, who's at the Bitcoin Policy Institute. So all of these people were in DC for an event. And there was this mysterious tweet about a meeting in a room somewhere in DC. This is where it all happened. So, okay, there's some sort of meeting that has happened. And then Jason Lowry updated his profile picture to an American flag. And somebody said to him, "Why did you do that?" And he was like, "Well, in 3 weeks, you'll understand why." And he has said nothing since he was silenced, right? So he was not well received. I was very new on Bitcoin when he published that book, and I didn't understand necessarily all of the nuance and the culture and the all of these different, I don't know. I didn't understand why that book was so poorly received. And also he got a lot of hate for it, right? And I think whether you agree with the thesis or not, it's certainly something to consider. And again, whether you agree that it's a good thing or not, he certainly had a very significant thesis and was told he wasn't allowed to discuss it. And now he has sort of said something is going to be announced. So to me, there was just this natural conclusion that okay, the DOD is going to mine Bitcoin. You have Trump super into Bitcoin, and I don't know how well he actually understands it, but he does seem to understand, I think, the strategic value for the United States. And he, he's a dollar guy. So I think maybe he thinks that Bitcoin is going to save the dollar. So there's some Trojan horse happening there, but it doesn't matter, right? Because Bitcoin's going to do what it's going to do. So you just have all of these pieces of information. And I think as the government has sought to understand Bitcoin, decided to create this strategic Bitcoin reserve, there is another piece that's been missing, which is the piece of interaction with the mining industry, right? And if you follow Bob Burnett, he talks a lot about this and how it would be very beneficial for sovereigns to be mining Bitcoin. You have template creation and off-grid Bitcoin and all kinds of different threads there that ultimately go up the funnel to, of course, the government is going to be involved in mining Bitcoin. So I think the time has come, and I guess in 3 weeks we'll see.
So you've heard Bitcoin is the new gold rush by now. As world leaders on all sides have endorsed it as the future of money, and now you're looking to get started, we'll show you how. It's actually easier than you think. First, go to your nearest Byte Federal ATM and turn your cash to coin. Byte Federal has over 1,200 locations around the country with the highest daily limits. Go to our website, bytefederal.com, to find the nearest ATM to you. Log in to any wallet, then create an account, deposit your US cash, and instantly convert it to Bitcoin. That's it. We are the only US manufacturer and operator in the Bitcoin ATM industry, and our US-based live customer service is second to none. Go on, give it a whirl, and don't get left behind. Click the link below.